Bob Boozer is interesting because he came from Omaha, so he came from a neighboring state of a Big 8 foe.
Howard Shannon and I sat in the office and had Bob Boozer wait out in the hall while we talked about whether or not we were going to take him, and this was in August. Iowa State, he was interested in Iowa State. They didn't recruit him. Nebraska didn't recruit him. And he's a long, lean guy. I told Howard Shannon, I said, Coach, this guy, he's a young colt. He's going to grow 2 or 3 inches. Everybody said he couldn't play outside and he was undersized postman. Well, of course, history showed that he could play out. He could play anywhere.
What most people don't realize, I remember when he came in as a freshman, he was big and he was mobile. He wasn't a very good shooter. I mean, he wasn't a bad shooter, but he wasn't really a very good shooter through his freshman year. But as the year went along, the freshmen used to come up and scrimmage the varsity a little bit because that's how Tech's evaluated talent. And Bob certainly was not unaggressive at that particular point of his career. But the greatest thing was that when he came back as a sophomore to start that season, he had developed himself as far as his shots were concerned, and he became a really great scorer.
Ernie Barrett took me aside and worked with me after every practice, one-on-one. He showed me different things to do.
I had just come back from playing in the Celtics, and Boozer was kind of tentative. He was not physical like he needed to be for being 6'8" or 9" in those days, and I'd knock the daylights out of him. He'd go in for a layup, and I'd have him on the floor. And he got up time after time and ready to fight me, and I kept saying, come on.
He beat me up pretty good. And then as I started getting more skills, I started beating back. And then when I started beating back and winning, then I knew that the games were going to be a lot easier than the practices.
Bob is somebody who developed into a great player. I always thank my lucky stars that he came to K-State because Jack Parr made us a Big 7 champion. Bob Boozer helped us become a national contender.
He'd get the ball off the boards, fill the lane. We could get the ball in deep to him. In his last year or two, Tex developed a couple of extra plays for him outside of the triangle that would guarantee us points. I mean, it was just automatic almost. He could hook the ball, he could shoot the ball. I don't remember him ever not completing a play.
Some of his games, one I'll never forget, is against the University of Colorado in the Big 8 tournament, then the preseason tournament in Kansas City. And we were ranked number 1 or 2 in the nation at the time, and Colorado was ready to spring the upset. They had something like a 6-point lead with less than 2 minutes to play. Well, Tex Winter called timeout, and then for the remaining 2 minutes, they just cleared the one side for Boozer, and he went out there and hit those 20, 25-footers, and we won by 1 or 2 points, I believe it was. But that was so typical of Boozer, and he would have been a great 3-point shooter. But he also was very adept on the inside game. At the time, Tex had Jack Parr. But when Parr would get in foul trouble, Tex merely moved Boozer into the post, and he was right at home. He was so adaptable, and I think that's proved by the fact that he went on and had such a great career in the pro game.
I would have to say that Bob is probably the best player ever to play at K-State. He's the only player from K-State ever to be the #1 pick overall by a team that had pretty good ability to judge talent, the Boston Celtics.
That front line with Parr and Boozer was incredible, and anyone around college basketball at that time from coast to coast would say, wow, that's the best front line in college basketball at that time. And in all-time K-State history, I'm hard-pressed to find a better front line than those two.
Bob Boozer is one of the finest players that I had the privilege to play with or against, and a privilege now to call friend and a great teammate.
And he is another guy who I think on a national level is underappreciated. You could say he was one of the 3 or 4 best players of his era in the entire college game in my mind.
Brings a little emotion to me because I think an awful lot of Boozer. He was my roommate for a couple of years. I still think the world of him. Just a great, outstanding player and an outstanding person.